So today I want to first of all convince you or give you an evidence that if you don't have a chatbot in your business, I personally believe that it's a high time to think about one, even if you're a small business or medium-sized business, because most of the large businesses have their chatbots already working, but doesn't mean they do a good job. And I'm not aware of the fact if you heard, but in New York, the chatbot start hallucinating and start giving people hints how to obey labor law. In UK, DPD, which is a logistic company like here in US, UPS, chatbots was using a bad wording and insulting customers, all of that because of hallucination and things like that. So even big companies with big budgets for AI, them might be also influenced by not even planned or like something they miss, but this technology chatbots need to be strictly measured, and they have to be really looked after if you want to make a success. But on the other side, we live in the times when customers are expecting the issues, tickets, questions, returns to be solved faster than ever, and chatbots are the way. So most of the time, current data is showing that in customer service, marketing, human resources, and operations, chatbots are must-haves. And chatbot doesn't mean something that can answer every question. I think there is a lot of misunderstanding that people consider chatbot like somebody that actually somebody like a person, digital person or AI powered person that can answer any question and solve any issue. It turns out that that's not the thing. The thing is to explain customers what they can do with chatbot. So if this is a HR chatbot, what kind of problems or task it can deliver. A lot of things that happen, there are a lot of wrong things that happen on this side. It happens because people think that chatbot can solve anything because it's so smart, because it's AI powered. And it turns out companies need to be responsible for explaining what that is. Approximately 53% of users find long wait times for responses the most frustrating. And that is a first KPI I want to talk about a little bit right now and then tell you more later, is time to resolution. It's one of the biggest and the most important thing in chatbot world, that if your chatbot cannot beat time to resolution, this chatbot existence is most of the time, it's not most of the time, it's most of the time, I would say not necessary. What I mean by that, let's imagine, and I'm speaking from the real project, you are a physiotherapy clinic and you solve problem of finding good slot for your customer visit. You find this best times in calendar through phone, and it usually takes you 5 to 10 minutes to solve that issue for a customer to set an appointment. That's time to resolution thing. If you really want to change that through chatbot should be able to do that at least 50% faster than the phone. So if you extrapolate that on any situation in your business, like setting up the barbershop appointment or figuring out when you want your customer to come to change a tire in the truck or whatever it is, if you can do that faster over the phone or over an email, then the chatbot should be properly crafted to do that even faster. And that thing that chatbot is solving should be a critical thing for a customer. So We mostly are talking about frequently asked questions as a good use case for chatbots. Let me tell you this story. Let's say you want to find out the new visa regulations and you need to call the phone call. You make a phone call with your local IRS office and start talking to them. So instead of asking question over the phone, you could do that over the chatbot. And that's the great, very solid use case for frequently asked questions. Instead of asking obvious questions over the phone call, you can talk to chatbot. But if you set up chatbot just to talk about something that people don't care, like for instance, in your business, when you distribute food on demand and you want to start a chatbot about ingredients and things like that, and if people don't care about this because they order that pizza anyway and they don't care about convenience, the ingredients, the chatbot that will help them to understand ingredients is useless because that's not the use case in this situation. So first of all and foremost, and I'll give you a framework today, simple steps, how to figure out which issues chatbot should solve. But I want to tell you that 50% of the time, customers are really angry with the response time when it comes to critical issues. When it comes to nice to have issues, chatbot is completely useless, and that's not a good way to start it. But if chatbots can solve that issue fast, we can see that 62% of consumers prefer chatting with a chatbot over waiting 15 minutes for agency response. So that gives you a clear understanding. Obviously, it's an average number, but gives you a clear perspective when chatbot is doing its job and when it's not. And that's another KPI, which is a minimal response time. And that's another important metric. I'll give you a comprehensive table of metrics in the next slides. By the way, if you, at the last slide, I'll give you a QR code. So if you scan it, you will get the copy of my latest white paper about how AI can be used in sales to boost your revenue acquisition and what kind of tools you can use there. So at the end of that presentation, there'll be a slide for that. Okay, so chatbots can handle a lot of queries at the same time, saving up to 30% time in customer service costs. That's the value for you. For a customer to face a chatbot, it's a convenience of 24/7 availability, of talking to anywhere around the world, anytime. But for you, it's a chance to narrow down the cost of customer service, only if you do it right. That's why I'll give you today KPIs and metrics. What does it mean to do it right? Overall cost saving from implementing chatbot all over the world is actually delivering a lot of dollars, and it's only increasing. The last example you can see, it's Amazon chatbot, which helps you to order things, return things. Nike app chatbot, which helps you to figure out which apparel you should buy, what is a good price, and how to track your returns. Those are the big chatbots that are handling a lot of operations. But if you look at car dealerships, most of the chatbots are responsible for finding inventory because that's the most tedious task that customer needs to do on the website. So instead of scrolling through inventory on your local dealership website, you can talk to chatbot about it. And that's a very good use case. Another thing is insurance companies, instead of talking to an agent, you can fill up the claim over the chatbot. And we have a great example in United States, company called Lemonade, like the drink lemonade, which is handling 97% of the claims through chatbot. So that gives a lot of saving, and it should be a saving for you too. But to make sure it's a saving, you need to calculate before and after. So if you don't calculate what the customer service means today, or if you work in an industry that you help others to build chatbots, the technology is not that important. I mean, it is, but savings, numbers, business impact, it's even more important if you want to have a management buy-in. And I'm speaking here from the experience. Okay, so how to implement the chatbot to make sure that you solve a specific problem important for your customers, and that problem actually change metrics, and what metrics you should change. So defining problems to solve. I know it's easy to say, but I really want you to think about crafting a proper problem statement. Problem statement is very, I don't want to say old school, but very traditional, solid way of defining a problem you want to solve. It always defines the gap between here and future. So for instance, if your customers needs to wait 6 minutes in the line on the phone call to get the free agent, that's the gap. You want to eliminate that 6 minutes and make it a minute, or don't even people, or you don't want people to call. If you study the best customer service examples like Apple, for instance, they implemented in iMessage communication chatbot. WhatsApp is doing the same for businesses around the world because that fills the gap between the phone call and the agent to pick up. So if you want to solve an issue, find that gap. For instance, in a healthcare, it's a gap between me and the reception desk to set up the appointment or calculate the deduction or figure out the cost of my blood test or whatever I'm taking in the healthcare unit. So if that takes too much time or too much money or too much effort from a customer perspective, that's your gap. And define that gap very well and make sure, talking to your customers, stakeholders, that this gap is critical for your customer. BMW was doing a chatbot exercise and asked people for uploading interesting car interiors. So based on that, they designed the new line of car interiors for BMW cars release. That solved the gap from customers and from company. Customers could express what they want quickly by snapping a picture and uploading through chatbot. Company get a lot of data with the really low cost factor. So define problems. This is essential to determine how the chatbot can improve service. I would recommend not starting a chatbot that solves nice to have issues, like for instance checking a time zone time in your location, or figure it out what's the weather in the location of the factory I'm going to visit or the store I'm going to visit. That kind of things that are nice to have are not chatbot jobs. That's like something people can solve in other way. I saw chatbots that were actually talking to people about what they would like to buy and purchase. And then instead of giving them clear recommendations as a ready to buy card, it sent them to the website with a tailored or predefined selection. So that things people can do by themselves. But if you build recommendations that are ready to add to this cart and be quickly converted to purchase, you don't only minimize time to solution, but you also minimize time required for the transaction. And that is critical. Everything else is really nice to have. Try to avoid nice to have. Second, choose the right channel through which the chatbot will communicate with customers. As I mentioned in my examples, Apple is using iMessage, which is a regular messaging system. WhatsApp Business can open a chatbot for you within Facebook Messenger, Instagram, or either WhatsApp environment. And you can also build your own chatbot. Not always starting a chatbot from scratch is a solution. Many companies are offering out-of-the-box chatbot, and you will learn about them too today, but not always is a solution for you. I would recommend, if you just starting and solving maybe 1-2 issues for customers, like checking the return status or payment status, which are, by the way, great use cases. With this, you can actually, with this kind of use cases, you can provide through ready-to-go chatbots, like those available as the out of the box ones. So I would recommend to figure it out how you want to really start. And the first question I would recommend to ask is, where are your customers? If your customers are on the website, it's probably better to start something out of the website that can be easily integrated with your website, like Intercom or perfectbot.ai or others. But if you are feeling like, for instance, Spanish society around the world are using WhatsApp heavily, Spanish speaking, like Spain or Mexico, they're using WhatsApp heavily, it will be probably good to consider WhatsApp in these countries as a geo factor for your WhatsApp chatbot. So I would love to recommend not starting like automatically with, I need out-of-the-box chatbot from the vendor, because most of the time, if you're starting, you can really use ready-to-go things like off the shelf that are available, easy to integrate. By the way, Google Cloud, Google Vertex have those too, and I'll be talking about that later today too. So then another step is defining KPIs. And let me now jump a little bit to the table. This presentation will be like available for you after this webinar together with the recording. So don't worry, you don't need to, you feel free to snap a screenshot, but you don't need to do that if you don't want. So we have like 4 types of metrics: user metrics, chatbot metrics, message metrics, and kind of other. In each column, you have the most popular and the most powerful metrics we can use in chatbot environment. What I realize, most of the companies are either skip them at the beginning or just have only 1-2 in place. I am not advocating for having 20, because your dashboard that measure your performance should be as simple as possible. But 1-2, it's probably not enough, because we have at least 4 categories. So one metric from one category, it's around 4 metrics. So I would recommend that the 4 should be a minimum. So before you start really building your chatbot or adopting ready-to-go technology, I would strictly recommend to figure out which metrics will be important for you. For instance, how you want to define engaged users. Those engaged users should spend a specific number of time in seconds or minutes on your chatbot, asking at least 10-20 questions. That's the example. Depends on your business. If you are in e-commerce, you probably have more questions. If you are in B2B, you probably has less questions, and you need to faster reroute people to a real agent, because in B2B, issues are most of the time, averagely speaking, more complicated than in the B2C business, but it doesn't have to be a rule. So active user, how many users you will have per 24 hours engaged. If you are a local dealership, you have a taste of how many people visit your brick and mortar store. So that can give you an idea how many people will be leveraging your chatbot. It's probably will be higher number that the people coming in. I could see like 20-25% more people hitting chatbot environment than brick and mortar store before they show up in the brick and mortar store. They use chatbot. So another is total number of interactions user have with the chatbot. So it's really impacting and giving you a chance to gather data. If you're in Europe, you need to deal with that from the different perspective because of the AI Act that European Union is releasing, but that's about privacy thing. Then you have chatbot metrics, unsuccessful response rate, one of the most important metric, which shows when chatbot failed. You cannot stop tracking this. Imagine the situation of the fashion store online, that when you ask about availability on the specific apparel or shoes or t-shirt, whatever it is, and the answer was wrong or the answer did not arrive, and then you were not followed up by email or any other way, that's a wrong environment. That chatbot didn't deliver, and you need to track that. Unsuccessful response rate should be lower and lower over time. Retention rate, it's a percentage of users who return to the chatbot over time. That's also important thing to measure, because it gives you a taste how useful is your chatbot. If you recall the example from physiotherapy clinic I gave at the beginning of this presentation, you'll see that if the ratio of people setting up their appointment over the phone is still growing and your chatbot is not taking off, that means that the retention rate on your chatbot environment should be improved, because it doesn't really deliver what it promised to deliver, or the value is not well explained. As I mentioned at the beginning, the goal of your chatbot, why it's there on your website or on your mobile app, should be clearly explained. If you don't tell, there's a general rule, if you don't tell people what is this chatbot for, they will come with every question, even the most silly question will be pushed to your chatbot expecting the answer. But if you tell them this chatbot is here to check the status of your return, or status of your order, or check your identity online and then help you log in, and that's only what this chatbot is for, most of the people will understand, and your retention rate, goal completion rate, and unsuccessful response rate will reflect that. Then you have a message metrics. How long is a regular conversation, and what's the sentiment on the conversation? Those are very critical, qualitative, unstructured data. And they will help you to understand how many steps are required to get the outcome that customer want. Obviously, the less number of the steps, the better. Obviously, some of the issues like consultation of how to repair the tire at home, or how to fill up the claim in insurance, cannot be completed in 1 or 2 steps. That's require more steps. So those steps are specific for the industry. But if you are a business owner or you in the business, you know how much interactions people need to conduct to fill up something, and chat should offer them less steps than the regular environment, like phone call or walk-in visit. So that sentiment and conversation length is important to define. And other metrics are, for instance, customer satisfaction metrics. Running the survey in the middle of the conversation is very powerful. If you want to measure how people evaluate your environment and how people really appreciate the chatbot, you can push the survey to questions. There's a question from Bashkar, sorry. Let me look at that. How have you been conveying what the chatbot does? Users typically come to website for different reasons and probably expect the chat functionality to answer their questions. Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Bashkar. First of all, people come to the website for different reasons. That's true. One thing is we can measure the source of the traffic. So if the traffic comes from Google, we can understand what was the visit for. And if that visit it's not in the chatbot scope, we can hide the chatbot. So the chatbot will be not available. Let me give you an example. If people are trying to buy food for pet and they just Google you and land on your website, and your chatbot doesn't help them to make that decision, there's no point to have a chatbot on your website. Most of the times, chatbots are asking questions, how can I help you? Suggesting that they can help with anything, which is wrong. That's one example. Second, if there is a traffic coming and people are like jumping from one subpage to another, clicking, for instance, car inventory, we can assume that somebody's looking for a car or browsing the offer, or maybe it's trying to run competitive analysis of prices and things like this. So we can pull up chatbot asking a question. For instance, am I right that you're looking for a car? And that will narrow down the conversation. That's second. And the third one is completely send an upfront flare that this chatbot is not for everything. So asking, how can I help you, suggests that it's for everything. But asking, can I help you to find a car? Or what can I help you with? Please let me check if I am capable of helping you. That's another conversation starter. So there's a lot of technology here and a lot of the business logic. And the third decision is what your technology is capable of. If under the chatbot, there is like a artificial intelligence, multi-model language model, multi-model model, which can understand text, voice, and image, we can navigate the conversation. So instead of like, if you want to fill up the claim, send a picture of your car being hit by another car and let me check what I can do for you. That's a technology limitation or capability. And if your model can handle voice, you can call the person that is trying to figure out the chatbot, record a conversation, and promise to come back within 24 hours. If that issue can be recorded, understand it, convert it to text, and then analyze it by a real agent and coming back through email or phone call back. So it depends on the scenarios. The worst case is suggesting that the chatbot can solve everything. I hope that was an answer, Khashkar, to your question. And other metrics is also Net Promoter Score and others. So I pull up this table at this step, defining KPIs for chatbot. So I would love to recommend to do that before you even start designing dialogues. So designing dialogues is like every possible conversation the chatbot should handle. And let me give you an example from one of my projects conducted for a huge automotive group here in the United States and Europe. If you think about sales representative giving calls to customers, most of the time sales representatives, they have a script. That script is conducted 100% or 90%, depends on how the dialogue with the customer flows. But most of the time, the sales representatives are trying to execute that script. So from the customer service perspective, we have limited number, even if it's 100 or 200 of possible scenarios. The chatbot could reflect that too. So there are technologies, I'm not focused on the technology today, but there are technologies that can learn that scenarios and design the conversation for chatbot based on those scenarios that were already executed. So if you collect your sales representative or your customer service people conversations and you have 2,000, 300, whatever, 30,000, you name it, conversation recorded, you can easily transcribe them and then make that as a pre-training data for your chatbot. So that's what I mean by designing dialogues. But please consider that this step is being taken after defining chatbot KPIs and problems you want to solve. The problem, the really trap is when you start designing dialogues up front without asking yourself what gap you want to fill and what KPIs you want to get. So that dialogues should be carefully picked up based on what problems you want to solve and what are KPIs you want to solve. So that's where it's the step. And the next one is training the chatbot and testing the chatbot, which is pretty obvious. Probably training the chatbot, if you are not tech company or you don't use off-the-shelf solution like WhatsApp or two others that I'm going to show you in a minute, it's probably something you need to delegate or find a vendor or subcontractor. But if you have the company with the internal IT team, those people might get skills and just build the chatbot, whatever. But that's like technical part. And from my perspective, defining problems, choosing a communication channel, and KPIs are the most critical that influence all the other three steps. I really care about on these webinars to being, I want them to be actionable as possible, as fast as, as much as possible. So I found two videos for you that you can really start chatbot by yourself. Obviously, that chatbots that you want to start, you can start by yourself, will not solve many problems for your customers up front. But if you carefully choose the scenarios, you can really set up the chatbot by yourself, solving like a one or two specific issues. Not very complicated one, but still giving your customers chance to solve something through chatbot instead of phone call or walk-in visit. So here is the pretty old video. It's showing how you can actually use ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo for building a chatbot. And I will not play the whole video because you will have the presentation afterward and you can play it, but just want to make sure the main steps for you, present the main steps. So you can connect to ChatGPT over API. If you are not a technology person, API is like your electricity plug on your wall that is actually hooked up to artificial intelligence model, and you just plugged in, can like use that model instead of like downloading and taking things. So So basically what ChatGPT does, it wrote the code that you can paste on your website and have the chat ready to work for your customers, like this one. It's very easy. You don't need to be a programmer, developer, software engineer to do that, even if it looks like you need to be somebody like this. So this video is for you to check how you can actually set up chat on your website doing specific issue with ChatGPT. Another example is a platform called Droxy.ai. How did I found Droxy? I was just looking for something super simple that you can use right away. So let me play this video for you. It's only 1 minute, so it doesn't have any sound, so I'll be commenting. Basically, what you can do, you can set up, you can upload as many documents as you want, and the chatbot will be answering questions based on that documents. This is a good chatbot if, for instance, you are in the B2B business, like for instance, you manufacture turbines or you manufacture screws, screwdrivers, parts of planes, parts of RC cars for toys, whatever, and you have huge set of catalogs. So instead, people browsing the catalogs, you can upload all catalogs and set up chatbot on your website. And that chatbot will be answering questions based on this catalog knowledge. But then you need to explain clearly, as I said at the beginning, that this is a chatbot for catalogs review or catalog study. So we want to save your time, dear customer, on reading. Instead of reading, we want you to talk to the chatbot. But that chatbot will be trained only on these catalogs, will not be able to answer any more questions, but within the catalog, it will be a master of information, which I think it's a super powerful example how with Droxy.ai, you can actually help people to save a lot of time on browsing documents, catalog, brochures, whatever you have. Similar technology Google Cloud offers under Vertex.ai. I will give you a direct link to my profile after this webinar. So if you want to connect and ask questions later, feel free. There will be a chance to do that later. So Droxy.ai can simply help you to set up the chatbot that will study for you hundreds or thousands of pages and will be master of that information which are in these catalogs. So your customers, instead of walking or downloading and reading on the computers, they can just talk to the chatbot, and that chatbot will have almost 100% answer ratio. Probably will maybe make mistakes one time per 100 questions or whatever. So that's a good example. Here is a summary for you how to use ChatGPT for that. I will just skip that. But here is also like how to evaluate chatbot for understanding their effectiveness and improving functions. First of all, you have a ready-to-go set of metrics for chatbot evaluation, which is a perfect combination from my perspective. Depends on your industry. You might change it a little bit. You might add or remove some of them, but if you follow task success rate, which I explained before, cost of dialogue, handoff rate, and matching statement and responses, you will always know when your chatbot doesn't deliver and what should be improved. Then you have improvement strategies, which is enhancing dialogue understanding or optimizing dialogue policy. So based on those two, you can either improve the technology or improve the policy. So streamlining response logic to minimize the length and number of interactions, for instance. So you can predefine some dialogues. That's a logic policy part. But if you want to make sure your chatbot is it's smarter and smarter, you might consider changing your technology AI model. I don't want to focus on that in this webinar. I do things like that for my customers and with their teams, but today I want to strictly focus on business. So that's what you can do. And then based on that, you can systematically analyze conversation and adjust strategies based on collected data. But first step is metrics, which those four are like minimum master set, I would say, which is like there's only four of them, as I mentioned before. If you follow them, you will always know when the chatbot does wrong and what does good. You will not miss it. But if you want to enhance it, feel free to add more metrics, depends on your business. At the beginning of this webinar, let me check the watch. I want to respect your time. We still have 30 minutes. I told you that I would try to convince you to run a chatbot if you don't have one. So another evidence is that chatbot allow companies to save up to 30% in customer service cost, but also the spending via chatbots will reach a certain amount of money. So people are and will be more willing to buy through chatbot than through classical way, I would say. So I would assume, I don't want to play here as like a scientist, researcher, or futurologist, but I will assume when we all get very comfortable with chatbots, the chatbots start delivering what we expect, our trust will increase. We will be even more willing to buy something through chatbot, like we are now completely okay buying something through Amazon. 20, 30 years ago, people were more afraid of sharing a credit card number or buying stuff online because they were not sure if somebody is going to steal that number or that the good will be delivered. Today, it's out of the question. Everybody knows that if you buy stuff on globally trusted website, the thing will come to you. If not, you can return that. The same will be eventually going on with chatbots, but now because of AI is taking off, we are kind of make yourself comfortable stage. But it's a good time to start and learn right now. That's the numbers that support my thesis. Also, if you are very interested in chatbots, I love implementing AI to increase loyalty, revenue, acquisition, reduce churn. And I really, really know and believe, I really know because I can see my customers that works. So, but you still like hesitating or it's new to you. I fix a table of couple of the most popular chatbots around the world and case studies. So you can take them and get yourself a little bit of a little bit more familiar with what the chatbots are and what's been already delivered. So here is like TDO, Intercom, very interesting source, HubSpot, Zendesk, Drift. Wati, it's a good example. Ada, ManyChat, all of them are right there for restaurants, for financial companies, different verticals. Also, if you want to have a technology ready to go and use off the shelf, those are like technologies that you can try. Google Chat, which is Google Cloud, Cleverbot, HelpCrunch, Bittrex24, all of that technologies. I don't know really which industry you're working on, how much technical or business are you, but I want to make sure this presentation cover both. So this is business, this is technology. Couple risk at the end of this webinar. If you have a question, please push it to the chat right now. I'll try to answer them. That's the last slide. First one, I am not cybersecurity expert, but when you deal with chatbots, you open a window to your data set. There's always a risk that data set to be exploited and either leaked or stolen, whatever. So make sure you have a cyber expert with you. Second, remember that you can integrate with anything like APIs, like this plug in the wall example I mentioned before. That always comes with a risk. So most of this risk here can be minimized if you have a good cybersecurity eye with you, or you are an expert like this, which is even better. And there are risks, but this, like e-commerce, there's always risk of fraud. So there's always risk of data leakage or data being stolen through chatbots. All right, and then last slide. If you want me to send you a white paper, which I wrote, it's about how chatbots and different tools can help you with sales, revenue, customer adoption. This white paper is several pages. When I read a lot of articles and books about it, kind of merge that knowledge and then list interesting AI tools that can be used in sales. So scan this QR code, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to invite you to my network. Read my posts about AI. But first and foremost, when you connect me, I'll just drop you a link so you can download that white paper and just have it completely complimentary no cost. I just want to spread the knowledge with this and connect with you and have you in my network so we can exchange ideas. This webinar is recorded, and it will be available on my YouTube channel and on my Twitter and on my Facebook, which all of them are mentioned here before as well. I'm sorry. So now I'm stop recording this webinar. Okay.